Okay, so we are doing summer scouting at the Draft Professor. I'm joined today by Bill and Newt, and this board or this position is what prompted this entire podcast. Bill and Newt were in the Draft Professor group chat. They were talking about a couple different wide receivers, and they said, well, I think it was Newt said, well, Bill, I want to podcast that with you, and I think we've had this scheduled what feels like for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it definitely has been.
Yeah, but Newt, do you want to run through your top 10 wide receivers?
Absolutely. So Carnell Tate is number 1 out of Ohio State. Denzel Boston out of Washington. Number 2, Jordan Tyson, Arizona State. Antonio Williams, Clemson. That's going to be a fun group to watch. And if he's coming in there, it's watch out for Clemson offense this year. Eric Singleton Jr. Is it Auburn?
It's remember. Auburn. Was Georgia Tech, now Auburn.
Georgia Tech, yep. Auburn now. Aaron Anderson, LSU. Mekhi Lemon, USC. Number 8 is Malachi Fields. At now Notre Dame was Virginia Tech. Virginia. Just Virginia, yep. Zachariah Branch. Oh, man, so many freaking transfers. Now at Bama from USC. Or Georgia. Now at Georgia from USC.
Zachariah, other red. It's Georgia, I believe.
Yep. Georgia, okay. Yeah. And then Sturdivant now, J. Michael Sturdivant now at Florida from UCLA. And then who's before that?
UCLA was where I first picked up on him last cycle.
I don't know why I thought he had 2 transfers in him.
Yep.
All right.
Bill, you want to run through your top 10?
Yeah, so my number 1, Kevin Concepcion, formerly of NC State, now at Texas A&M. Nick Harbor at South Carolina. Eric Singleton Jr. at Auburn. Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. Jacoby Lane from USC. Carnell Tate from Ohio State. J. Michael Sturdivant, formerly of UCLA, now in Florida. Antonio Williams from Clemson. Denzel Boston from Washington. And Jeremy Bernard out of Alabama, rounding out my top 10.
Okay. So, Bill, tell us about your number 1 guy, Kevin Concepcion.
Yeah, so when you look at Kevin Concepcion, this is a guy, I know the size is going to scare some people. 5'11", 187 pounds, is going to be a little bit light in the pants, but he is a route running artiste, and not artist, artiste, with an E and the funny little accent. He is crafty beyond his years as a route runner. The head fakes that he makes, the pacing, the throttling up, the throttling down. He's a very good hands catcher. He is, and I say this with all love, Freddy Krueger after the catch, an absolute freaking nightmare with the ball in his hands trying to catch him. Lightning in a bottle. He also has a natural rhythm to his game when he's working the intermediate parts of the field. This is a guy who, can easily throttle up to get into a break, throttle out of a break, throttle over through a crosser, through ins and outs. He also does not shy away when the lights are on bright. You watch the Clemson game. You watch the Virginia game when he was at NC State. He showed up. He showed out. When I look at his game, the biggest issue is that he's limited physical profile. He's 5'11", 190 pounds. He's going to have matchup problems against press corners in the NFL. He also, had his production dip in his sophomore season, went from 840 yards down to 460. So you got to have a consistency question when a defense keys in on him. But all in all, with what he can bring as a route runner, with the speed that he has, getting in and out of breaks, how easily he can get open as a route runner, he is my number 1 wide receiver on my board. For me, Concepcion is my number 11 overall player. When I see him, I see a lot of Santonio Holmes when he was at Ohio State and Pittsburgh. The same thing that we saw Santonio Holmes do as a route runner in the NFL, we're going to see from Concepcion in Texas A&M. And I'm firmly believing that he's my wide receiver 1, be all end all.
Yep. Do you want to tell us on Cart? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I kind of want to go off of that because I got 3 things that kind of popped in my head. Number 1, I'm not going to argue about him as a route runner. I've got scale from 1 to 7. for all of mine. Separation route running is 6 out of 7. And I mean, it's going to take a lot to get to that number 7. Concepcion does that. And he is very, very good. Everything that Bill said, I totally agree with. I guess I didn't see him as electric after the catch as you did, Bill. And I think that obviously is going to play a little bit of a factor that drops him off for me. Because I agree that the build is a little bit it's a negative for sure. Yeah. The one thing that really drove him down for me, and this is where he's got a lot of opportunity to grow and become a top 10 player, is he had almost a 12% drop rate last year. And it's something that, and I'm probably more critical on it than others, but if you have a bad drop rate, I can't say that I think you're going to be a great receiver. You got 2 jobs out there: get open, which he does almost as good as anyone, if not as good as anyone, but catch the ball is number 2. And he does have like great technique. He'll go out and he'll get it. But when you got 11.7% drop rate, it really drives you down as far as like my scouting rankings go.
Yeah. And Newt, do you want to discuss your number 1 receiver, Carnell Tate?
Carnell Tate for me. So if I look at him, I'm not immediately like, oh, this guy is a bona fide number 1 that, stands out in, every area possible. But as I was going through and I'm checking off the boxes, I love the build. Like 6'3", you kind of have that versatility. He's not, too big where he's predominantly going to be used as just a big body target. He is athletic. He can do a lot of things for you as a route runner, but he also offers a nice frame. He has a firm understanding of the game, and his IQ as a route runner is exactly what you'd expect out of an Ohio State wide receiver. You can tell that room continuously produces players that are of a high quality. Number 1 for obviously the reputation and the players they get in there, but number 2 for the coaching, which is why the players choose to go there. They understand how to teach that and how to create really, really high-level wide receiver prospects. And if you look at the receivers that have come out of there, all of them have had a great understanding of route running skills and the things that go into that. And I think Carnell Tate is no different. He's natural hands catcher. He's got good body control. He just everything. I'm not saying that there's like an area where, man, he is like the best in this, but every area that I care about for a wide receiver, he is like firmly above average, where it's not like, he kind of just does everything okay. He does everything really, really well.
Hey, and Newt, do you want to cover your number 2 receiver, Denzel Boston?
So Boston, for me, he's going to be the player that is a little bit more of that bigger body, 6'4", 209. He's not – I'm not saying that he is – oh, God, who's the guy out of Florida State 2 years ago?
Keon Coleman.
Who? Not Joe John, not Coleman. The other guy.
Johnny Wilson?
Johnny Wilson. He's not Johnny Wilson, obviously, where he is, a power slot through and through. He can move. For his size, he has great athleticism. He's got good long speed, and you expect that as you have a taller, longer frame, you want to be able to open that up. And he's a guy that he's willing to do a lot of things there. First clip I ever threw on of him was against USC. He comes from the split wide position, just throws a block down on a safety on a run that ended up being like 6-7 yards, 3 of those yards because he completely obliterated the safety. And that was immediately like, all right, check mark in the box for a guy that wants to go out there and play. So I love his build. I love the athleticism that he still has with that build. I don't think he's quite as good of a route runner, which is what drops him down a little bit for me. He's not quite as good with the ball in his hands. He's going to kind of be that, like I said, bigger body role where, hey, you can have a nice large target to get the ball to, but he's not going to be slicing and dicing after the catch as much, which is kind of like where he falls off a little bit from Tate.
And Bill, do you want to discuss your number 2 and 3, Nick Harbor and Eric Singleton?
Yeah, so I'll start with Nick Harbor. So when you look at him, this is a guy that is, and I say this, an Avengers level threat. I mean, he's Superman personified, 6'5", roughly probably somewhere in the 4.3 40-yard dash. He's an Olympic level sprinter. He's got the speed. He's got the size. He's a nightmare matchup. You know, this is a guy who was back-to-back number 1 on Bruce Feldman's freak list. And for those that don't know, the Bruce Feldman freak list is the list of college football players that are either really strong, really fast, or both. And he was number 1 in back-to-back years, saying that he's really strong, really fast, both in back-to-back years. He also, and I love this about him, when he has the ball in his hands in yards after catch scenario, he's not just trying to out-juice people. He runs like a freight train. He wants to run through people. He has every intention of getting to the end zone by hook or by crook. He's going through you or by you. Take your pick on which one you want to do. He also, accelerates through his breaks, especially in intermediate routes. This is a guy that can throttle up, throttle down with ease. He also dominates on slants, fades, back shoulder throws because he has that size ability. He is Alshon Jeffrey if Alshon Jeffrey ran a 4.25 40-yard dash. That's what I get when I see Nick Harbor.
That's fair.
And flipping over to the other one, Eric Singleton, formerly of Georgia Tech, now at Auburn. A little bit smaller, 5'11", 190. But the big things that you see with him is he's got legit speed, and it shows up on tape consistently. A natural hands catcher. This is a guy that's not going to catch the ball in his chest, not have an issue with that. He plays bigger than his 5'11" size indicates. He also has a very slippery elusiveness after the catch. This is a guy, I call him Jello. It's like trying to staple Jello to a tree when you're trying to catch him after the catch. It's just not going to happen. He also is willing to go over the middle at 5'11", 190, and you normally don't see that in smaller guys. But again, like we talked about with Concepcion, if you don't like undersized receivers, Singleton Jr. is not for you. This is a guy that you have to use him in space, use him away from press to get him open. You're going to have to draw up screens and jets and bubble sweeps to get him the ball in space. But if you get him the ball in space, magic is going to happen. It's like if Santana Moss had a baby with the Flash. That's what you get with Eric Singleton Jr.
Like that.
Bill's giving us a lesson in DNA too. Like, this is the draft professor. You are getting information from a lot of different directions.
That's what happens when you get a comp king himself on the show.
Absolutely. So, Newt, you have Jordan Tyson and Antonio Williams higher than Bill. So you want to tell us about Tyson and Williams?
I'm honestly surprised about that because I feel like everyone I talk to, when I say Jordan Tyson is not number 1 for me, they immediately dismiss me and think I'm an idiot. So I can't believe that and I know it's 3 and 4, so not a huge difference. But I think with Tyson, great athlete, does everything really well that you want in terms of running routes. He's a great separator. He understands how to, once again, play the role of a receiver very, very well, and he has the athletic ability to do so. I think there are some things with him that he lacks play strength a little bit. I never saw him, and I was like, man, this guy is, really able to flex that 6'2" frame and be a contested catch king. I know he had a really good contested catch percentage last year, about 66%. But it was never anything that necessarily stood out to me. He always, just from a route running perspective, was a player that did a really good job of getting himself into a position where Leavitt was able to have a really reliable target. Him going down late in the season, I think, was an absolute killer in terms of the flow of that offense. Obviously, they made the run that they did. Regardless of him not being there, that Texas game, though, might go a little bit differently if you have him on the field with Scatabo. But I think all in all, he's a player that he has a good athletic profile. He creates some good separation. He does a lot of things well, but he's not super dangerous after the catch. I think he's okay. And he also has another high drop percentage. He's like 8.5% drops. And someone tweeted at me and said, a lot of it was earlier in the season. He cleaned it up. And I went back and looked, and unless, PFF's got bad data, then it was fairly consistent throughout that, he has just, and I don't know if it was concentration drops or what it was, but it was something that was definitely present. And once again, it goes back to the fact that I need to see you be a reliable target and be able to, really put a nice low drop percentage out there. So that's Tyson for me. Antonio Williams, and I'll be kind of concise with him because he does a lot of things really, really well. But number one, high drop percentage again, 9.6%. Then I think, Bill, we were talking about this earlier where I just feel like every guy I'm looking at has like an 8 or higher drop percentage. And it's just like, what is this class doing? So definitely drops him a little bit. He looks a little slender to me. He's 5'11", 190. He looks a little more wiry. But, man, the one thing about Antonio Williams is this guy is lightning in a bottle. He has probably the best release I have seen for anyone in this entire class. It is instantaneous. He understands how to get off, whether he's playing out wide, he's playing in the slot. He is a phenomenal route runner, and even more so, just a great releasing wide receiver, which is something that it's very apparent when you put the tape on it. And if you're looking for it and you look for him right off the line, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. So Tyson Williams coming at 3 and 4 for me.
Cool. And Bill, you're higher on Jacoby Lane and J. Michael Sturdivant. You want to talk about them?
Yeah, so first up is Jacoby Lane from USC. When you look at him, this is a guy towering 6'4" frame. He looks 6'4". He's every bit of 6'4". Long arms, just a nightmare in contested catch situations. This is a guy who you are going to want to throw the jump ball to. You're going to want to throw the fade to because his catch radius is making him he's going to be a go-to option inside the red zone. Very good body control, has the ability to adjust to off target throws and can adjust while in the air. He also is deceptively quick. He can build up speed in a hurry, but I'm going to flip the script on that. He doesn't have an elite burst off the line. This is a guy who's like a tractor trailer. You get going, you can hit 70, but in the short area, you're not going to win any drag races with Jacoby Lane. He also is 196 pounds, and that is a lean 196 pounds. So you have concerns on him being able to handle press effectively. When I see him, I see a lot of Sidney Rice when Sidney Rice was with Minnesota. That same style, very tall, lanky receiver, very good as a pass catcher, but wasn't going to blow the doors off in any sort of testing. And then the other receiver, J. Michael Sturdivant, formerly UCLA, now at Florida, been a my guy since last year. I had a top 50 grade on him last year and was absolutely devastated that he went back to school. But I think him going back to school and landing in Florida is absolutely a perfect fit for him. This is a guy 6'3", 205, super athletic, was on the Feldman Freak list in 2023 with some numbers I'm going to throw at you. I'm not a big numbers and analytics guy until I watch the tape, but 23.2 miles an hour, bench press close to 300 pounds, squatted almost 400 pounds. He moves. By the way, he moves. He is a long strider too. This is a guy, not only is he quick, he's a long strider. He's going to eat up space quickly. Shows some promise as a route runner, smooth breaks in and out of his cuts. He also is versatile enough to line up both outside and in the slot. Good body control, and also demonstrates a willingness as a blocker. Here's the big concern. Newt's talked about it all night long, and I'm going to continue to talk about it, is he's got to improve consistency in his hands. His drops are all over his tape. Despite his straight line speed, he doesn't have the good short area quickness. Another guy that once he get up and goes, he's gone, but doesn't have that short area quickness. In addition to that, if he's matched up with a physical press coverage corner, he's going to struggle a little bit. And my comp for him, Newt's going to love this one because it's one of his guys. My comp for him is Christian Watson.
Hey.
The same things that he does for Green Bay, Sturdivant can do for an NFL franchise. But Newt's talked about it. The drops are concerning because I got to have you hand onto the ball and hold on to it. But, man, you want to talk about an athletic weapon. He's that guy.
Yeah.
Who you want to cover next?
I'm going to go with Anderson next, as you're just kind of like popping down the list. Just to kind of pop off that, though, just last minute with Sturdivant. And once again, a player I watched 100% because you told me, like, hey, you got to get this guy in here. And, man, the highs are so high. The lows are just inconsistency and the drops. And if this guy can do what he does, I've talked about the USC tape before. If you haven't seen Sturdivant against USC, there are players that don't have that many catches that are that highlight worthy in an entire season, and he's got them in one game. But there's other games where he just disappears. And so I'm right with Bill. If he can put it, together, we're talking about a top 5 receiver, top 3 receiver.
Yeah.
But if he can't, man, he's not going to be probably even in my top 20. And I think this is a really big year for him. So, Aaron Anderson out of LSU. So we've talked about the size of receivers a little bit. I've got a smaller one right here. Aaron Anderson's 5'8", but he's 187 pounds. So put this kind of into some perspective for other players that we've listed off. You've got Antonio Williams, 5'11", 190. You've got Carnell Tate, 6'3", 191. So now we have Aaron Anderson, 5'8", 187, and he looks like he is a dense player. And that height, while it's obviously going to be a disadvantage for him when it comes to having a large catch radius, being able to separate and get his hands on players, most likely a slot-only player, just given that ability or that inability, I should say, for him to get off presses smoothly as others. It also leads to the things that you'd like to see, which are explosive athleticism, really good separation, and an effective ability to be a plus ball carrier. So once he has the ball in his hands after the catch, he's over 0.3 for his missed tackles forced, and he was like 7.5 for yards after contact per reception. So a guy that has physical limitations in terms of his overall height, and still 187. While on that frame, it makes sense. You're still a smaller player out there, but man, you get the ball in his hands. He is a dangerous player. Lemon, similar feel to me. He's 5'11", 190, but he plays to me a little bit smaller, and you can see it as him as a punt returner for USC. He's kind of the same mold where I don't necessarily love him as a separator. I don't think he's like the most athletic player out there, but he understands how to be a ball runner. And so with him, if he can be that slot type of player, which is why I think, 5'11", you can kind of go a couple different ways with that build, but I think he needs to have some things manufactured from him. I don't think he's necessarily like the greatest separator, but you get him on a jet sweep, you get him in a bubble screen, those types of situations. I think that Mekhi Lemon has the ability to be kind of that niche role where he can be a really good option for you, maybe as a third or fourth receiver, but then also because he's so good with the ball in his hands, and he has a ton of experience. You love to see him as a special teams punt returner or kickoff return man. You can see a lot of opportunities with him, making really, really big plays out of what are a 7-yard pass into a 35-yard gain because he has that ability to him. So a couple guys that are probably slot only for me, but definitely do a good job of excelling in that role.
100%. And just to add this to your two players you just talked about, Aaron Anderson and Mekhi Lemon, my comps for Aaron Anderson, it's Brandon Cooks.
Okay.
We saw him
perfect.
succeed.
Yep.
And then Mekhi Lemon, Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, I love that.
Same thing. So we've seen receivers have success at the NFL level in terms of being on the smaller end of the stature. And the next guy I'm going to cover is my number 10 guy, and it's Jeremy Bernard from Alabama, 6'1", 209, so not quite as big as Nick Harbor. I don't know if anybody in this class will be, or even Denzel Boston or Carnell Tate, but this is a guy, very good hands, consistently secures the catch, reliable. He is what I like to call Dr. House in the intermediate routes. He is surgical and precise in his route running over the middle of the field. The head fakes that I talked about with Concepcion, I would argue Concepcion is a better overall route runner, but Bernard's got him beat on the intermediate stuff. He's that good. In addition to that, I say this with all love, his deep ball tracking ability belongs in a freaking museum. It is a thing to behold and a sight of beauty. He also, this is a guy, despite his height at 6'1", he's a contested catch machine. He is a guy that is willing to mix it up, get in there, get his hands dirty. Also can play outside and inside. This is a guy that's not just going to be solely a boundary guy. He can play the slot. Doesn't really have that true burner speed and doesn't really have that long speed either. He's got adequate NFL speed, which is fine because he's able to be an effective route runner. He's able to secure the catch. He's able to track the deep ball, but he just doesn't have the ability to get away. And he also gets bounced off his routes very easily by press coverage physically. This is a guy, when I look at him, I see a lot of Mohamed Sanu when he was at Rutgers. Reliable as all get out, deep ball tracker, willing to get physical, willing to mix it up, but defensive coordinators are not going to lose sleep at night over Bernard's separation ability.
Okay, Newt, your last two. Oh,
no, I was going to roll.
Zachariah Branch.
Yeah, I was going to roll right into it. I was pulling up Fields. So Fields is going to be kind of like nice to bounce off of that because Fields is another big-bodied receiver that we have in this class. And he is, I talk about Denzel Boston being, 6'4", 209. He's still – Boston moves really well still, in my opinion. Like, he's got that athleticism. With Fields, and I don't mean this in a bad way because he's definitely more athletic than I am, but you see it. There is definitely a drop-off in terms of his separation, in terms of his athletic ability, and even in terms of his long speed where, if you're 6'4", I want to see you at least stretching the field deep, and I just didn't see it out of Lemon. Now, with that, the thing that he does well is what I need him to do well, and he's got a big catch radius, and he's really good in contested catch situations. So while he's not a separator and he's not a guy that is going to be a burner, he will take advantage and make the most of his opportunities. One player we didn't get a chance to talk about earlier, Tanner Koisel, out of now Houston, played at Wisconsin for a spring, and then Ball State. Koisel is a player that is really, really good at what he does, which is catching contested catches. But that's because he lives in contested catch opportunities. Fields is the wide receiver version of that. But I think there's definitely an opportunity and a place for him if he can really, really hone that in. The problem is when you step at the next level, that athletic limitation really starts to become apparent. And just because you're good at contested catch opportunities doesn't mean that is going to automatically translate over, and you're also going to lose a step in other situations. So I like Fields. I think that he is a different flavor than you get from a lot of these other guys. But I just worry about him with that build and his game in general. And then Zachariah Branch, he's a player that if you were to put Mekhi Lemon and Zachariah Branch together, they would be the perfect slot wide receiver, in my opinion. Hell, they might even be one of the better receivers, because while Mekhi Lemon he's built really well, 5'11", 190. I like to see that. But I see him as a slot-only player because of his lack of separation. Branch, I love his separation. I think he's a really, really refined route runner. The problem is he's 5'11" and 175. So while he has the ability and the athleticism to be a stellar route runner, he lacks the mass to not get bumped off his routes outside or to evade press coverage. So with him, I think he was the other half of that punt return, kick return duo at USC, electric with the ball in his hands. I like Lemon a little bit better, but I think Branch is definitely a player that you can scheme things up for him. But the smaller frame and really his, I don't want to say step backs. Once again, I think he's a great athlete. I think he's good as a receiver and good with the ball in his hand. But like his step back from some of these other guys, that it's not like next level. And then you put that on top of that with the frame, it just starts to drop him down for me, where I'd rather take maybe a guy that's not quite as good or quite as electric, but they bring size, they bring a little bit more natural hands catching and a little higher IQ to the game as opposed to like a Zachariah Branch. I think he's definitely going to end up more as a gadget or utility type player. Definitely has an opportunity. Like I said, you see 4 wide receiver sets all the time in the NFL today. You're carrying 5-6 receivers on a team, and everyone needs a punt returner. So I think he's got an opportunity to contribute just via those means.
Yep, and I'll piggyback on this with those two. So just for comp perspective, Newt, Malachi Fields, Brandon Marshall.
Yep, solid.
Yeah, and then Zachariah Branch, Diet Tavon Austin.
Okay, I can get on board with both of those. I like the Fields comp. I think and it'll be fun to see Fields at Notre Dame this year when you put him in a premier system. What are you going to do there versus at Virginia? I'm not trying to have Virginia catch any strays right now. I apologize if there are any Cavalier fans out there. But there's definitely a step up in competition. The lights, as you said all night, Bill, get brighter there. So it'll be interesting to see what he does there.
So I appreciate how you guys were able to go, back and forth. I think we just covered 14 wide receivers, if I did that math right. So out of the 20 receivers that are listed, there's 14 unique names on either the left or the right side for Newt or Bill. One of the reasons that we spent more time going through the detail of the wide receivers is that there are other draft professors that are saying it's difficult to sort through the wide receiver group this year. There's a lot of players that are, let's say, in the same tier. So you're going to be seeing, I think, when other draft professors cover wide receivers, we're going to be doing at least at a similar level of detail to try to see how different people value different aspects of a player. Like seeing Nick Harbor at 2, like that's definitely a statement, right? And there's going to be other draft professors. They're going to tell you that Harbor is going to be much lower on their board because of other things like should he move to edge, right? And we've already had that podcast once where Bill's number 2 wide receiver, other draft professors think he should switch to edge or tight end. Yeah. So it's going to be a fun draft season. Newt, you want to introduce yourself to our fine audience and let them know how to find you?
Yeah, I got to remember how to do this. I haven't done it in a couple months now. Newt Weston, you can find me what will be Wednesdays now come fall time on the Draft Professor Mrs. Our Relevant podcast. Excited to get back to that. Excited to kind of get a little bit of a taste again of that right here. Always a good time working with Bill. But you can also find me over on Twitter at NFL Draft _Weston. That's where I've been posting a lot of clips for players that I've been going through, breaking down, interacting with great minds like Bill, amongst other draft professors and draft personnel on Twitter. And then I also run zerotechdraft.com, and that is going to be where once my big board gets put together for the summertime, that gets posted along with mock drafts, updated big board, articles, as well as this year, which is kind of something unique I have with my change in grading and evaluating players. I've made my entire big board and prospect grades open to anyone who wants access to that. That's pinned on my Twitter. It is linked on zerotechdraft.com. If you at any point want to check that out, you're more than welcome to access it. It is a Google Doc or Google spreadsheet that you're able to pull up. So that's kind of my pet project of this year, something that I've been really excited to make public facing and definitely get feedback and be willing to share my thoughts for that.
And you can catch some of Newt's top 10s. If you didn't get enough of it here, go to Weekly Huddle. I had seen several of Newt's top 10s. I don't know that I had seen them all, but I saw several of them on Owen's channel as well. So
thanks for calling that out, Jim. I appreciate it. And I know Owen does as well.
Bill.
Yes, you can find me all over the internet on X at Spark Scouting, also TikTok, Threads, Instagram. Also have a Substack. Go search Spark Scouting on Substack. You'll find that there. Also a writer and analyst for the Right Way Sports Network at twsn.net. Just ran through my top 10 positional rankings at each position and a top 64 because I'm a madman. Currently have a big board of 440 plus players right now. And you'll also be able to catch me here on Wednesday nights as well on the Mrs. Our Relevant Daily Draft podcast. I'll be doing wide receivers with Dalton from Home Squad Sports when we start to ramp that up. And you can also catch me this coming Friday with Durst and Anthony. We're going to be covering some signal callers, so make sure you tune in for that. In addition to that, make sure that you go check out draftprofessor.com for our lovely moderator Jim's simulator. It is the best simulator on the internet. I was not paid to say that. I said that of my own free will and volition. Go check out his simulator. Jim, where can the people find you?
Yeah, so you can follow the station at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. It is the same on X as it is on YouTube. The single best thank you you can give if you like this content is to hit the subscribe on YouTube. So we have been podcasting together for 8 months. So for the better part of 8 months, we have been making daily draft podcasts. Bill, Newt, you guys were here right at the beginning. It's been a lot of fun, but we have 22 podcasters at the Draft Professor that podcast once a week and helps us create content like you're seeing here. So you can catch, like Bill said, on Friday we do quarterbacks. Mondays and Tuesdays we are breaking down individual schools' draft classes. So I believe we are sitting down and we are recording this on Wednesday. I believe the following Monday and Tuesday, Texas A&M I think is Tuesday, and I believe it's Georgia on Monday. But just if you go and just hit that subscribe, you'll know when we go live, right? Mm-hmm. In addition to that, if you want to discuss your big board, hop on a podcast. Just contact NFL Draft Fanatic and ask to come on a podcast. So we have several other guests who, for example, are going to be diving through about the 70 wide receivers we have on a watch list. And they're actually going to podcast the whole watch list. And that's coming in August. And we're doing that for every single position group. So that will give Bill a chance to listen to somebody else go through the 70 wide receivers we're watching. Newt can watch somebody go through the 120 defensive linemen that we're tracking, right? Because those are good. Like Newt's Wednesday podcast in the fall will be defensive line. Bill's Wednesday podcast will be wide receivers. They can see somebody else's opinion of the list before they start if they so choose. So we have lots of guests coming on Draft Professor. We have a really big board special coming at the end of August as well. You'll see Bill Randall, Sam Teets, and Travis Mays each going through their big board, and we'll probably be doing top 175 on that show. So you'll be able to see the different players other draft analysts are tracking. But daily draft content. We're here to have fun. We're here every day covering the draft some way, somehow. So for everybody watching, thank you very much. For the 80 people at Draft Professor, for Newt, for Bill, for myself, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on a podcast again tomorrow.